This is the Environmental Protection Commission. This is our regular meeting with public hearings, Wednesday, April 3rd, 2024. I guess we're going to open up some public hearings. EPC 01-2024, 20 Marion Road, N. De Silva, to demolish an existing structure and construct a new family residence, drive, drainage, subsurface sewage disposal system, and other related features proximate to the wetlands and watercourses. The property lies along the north side of Marion Road, approximately 1,115 feet east of Brookside Road, and is identified as map number 1, lot number 5091. The zone is R2, and it is approximately 1.19 acres.
Mr. Chairman, the public hearing was opened on this application on March 19th. Extensive testimony was provided. A long list of information still had to be prepared by the applicant to be responsive to the Commission's questions and concerns. And the application was continued to this evening's meeting. I can report that we, in view of the continuance, we sent notice to the applicant, we republished in the newspaper, we reposted this evening's agenda online with the town clerk. But we have received written correspondence from the applicant, not only granted the commission an extension, but requesting that they continue the public hearing to a subsequent date in order to generate the information necessary to move forward.
Okay, so I need a motion then for continuance, or we just continue it?
I think we just,
It remains open
It remains open, okay,
and it will be continued.
until closed, right?
okay. Okay, the next item of business is EPC 05-2024, Hanson Road, Town of Darien, Department of Public Works, replacement of Hanson Road Bridge over Stony Brook. To remove an existing bridge and construct replacement culvert, wing walls, utilities, timber, guide rails, channel enhancements, and other related activities in and approximate to wetlands and watercourses and special flood hazard areas. The property lies along a reach of Hanson Road, generally bordered by Linda Lane to the east and Hummingbird Lane to the west. Properties nearest project area include 410 Hollow Tree Ridge Road, 88 Hanson Road, and 100 Hanson Road.
Mr. Chairman, this application was, part of the initial session, was opened on March 19th. The public hearing was required based on public interest. The extensive testimony on the technical aspects of the application were provided at last month's meeting. Upon the completion of that testimony, it was determined to continue the public hearing to allow the abutting property owner and their representatives sufficient time to review the application and the newly developed materials. Subsequently to that meeting, we published notice in the newspaper again. We provided an updated notice to the applicant. The agenda was reposted, and we also had a letter from Attorney Wilder Gleason outlining several items that he was interested in many or some number of them would fall within the purview of the EPC. The team from the town, including Darren, can offer you some commentary and responses, but the technical elements of the application were thoroughly vetted at last month's meeting, including hydraulic impact, flood-proof nature of the construction, drainage impact, the value of mitigation. We also looked at things such as working in the dry, coming up with a diversion plan. There was a flood contingency plan that were submitted, all things that were positives towards the application. But Darren's going to give us an update on where we stand now.
Hello. Good afternoon, Chairman and Commissioners. Public hearing, so I'll do introductions.
Oh, would you please state your name and...
That's what I'm doing right now.
Good.
So, since it's a public hearing, I'll do a quick CV and an introduction. My name is Darren Ostafine. I'm the Assistant Director of Public Works here in the town of Darien. With me tonight is Ed Gentile, the Director of Public Works, our consultant team, Joe Canis and Jonathan Ives, who you met at the first public hearing. All of us are registered professional engineers in the state of Connecticut. At the public hearing on 3/19, we agreed to a 2-week extension to close the public hearing to allow the affected property owner, as Rick stated. I'm pleased to report that today, this morning, we had a very productive meeting with Attorney Wilder Gleason and the property owners of 88 Hanson Road. Following the last public hearing, as Rick stated, they had a number of questions. We believe we adequately addressed all of their questions. And they, as a matter of fact, gave us approval to say so publicly. So you can see they're not here tonight, and that's why. They fully understand that we will be going to a public hearing with the Planning and Zoning Department on the 23rd. So they're going to have plenty of time to continue talks with us and properly vet the project and make sure that they're protected and that their property is not harmed in any way. As Rick said, Mr. Talamelli said, we agree that the first public hearing, we addressed everything. However, our whole project team is here, and we'd be happy to answer any questions. We are here. And if there's no other questions, we would ask that the public hearing be closed.
Does anybody have any questions, or?
I brought this up last time, and I guess it still bothers me enough. 12 days ago, 3 inches of rain, 12 hours, Stony Brook overflowing down here. To me, I would love to not miss this opportunity to figure out how to engineer that you can hold some of that water back for an hour or 2 hours on the floodplain, on the golf course. It won't do any damage. Golfers don't go out in that. So you could slow down some of that input that affects way down here. There's got to be an engineering way to do that, and I can't believe that Weburn would have a problem that they could actually provide some of that area during a short period of time that would help other people further on down that Stony Brook Road.
There's always a way to engineer a solution, just about always. That cannot be a part of this application. We're replacing the bridge. It's in danger of collapse. That's why we're here. We went after, we sought and received assurances that we would have state money to replace the bridge.
Why can't you incorporate that in the bridge engineering? You know, you're actually taking that and you're making it wider now. So it will now add more water faster down into the system instead of where it is today. I understand it needs to be replaced. But this is the opportune time to do that, to engineer something, to add value to it. It's the only place in town where we have that area behind it. It seems like a lost opportunity.
I can tell you it's private property. I can tell you that
you could talk with them.
we're still talking to them about taking the tiniest of slivers of a permanent easement along the right-of-way.
But this
And in my opinion, I don't think that it's going to be, I don't think it would be well received at all by the Weburn Country Club.
to have some amount of water backed up for a couple of hours, anything, all right? It's not damaging, it's
Yeah.
just backing up.
I don't want to speak for them, but I can tell you my opinion from my conversations with them is they want to be left alone.
Okay.
They do not want to change their property at all. As a matter of fact, they took exception to some of the trees that we showed on their property. I cannot imagine that they would allow us to dig a detention pond.
No, not digging a detention pond. Just let the water back up. You know, don't let it
Okay.
rush out, let it back up, not detention ponds whatsoever. You know
I
what?
can tell you again, in my opinion, I can't speak for them,
Okay.
but in just about every conversation that I've had with them, they have expressed great concern about the water breaching the banks of the Stony Brook River and flattening the grass and potentially damaging their fairways and damaging the sand traps. But it's kind of a moot point.
All right.
It's an opportune time, but we do not have the opportunity.
Okay, my only
to pursue
comment
that.
back to them would be that they are now, because they have no berm at all along any of their swailing water coming down there, we as a group someday need to make sure that they don't have all that fertilizer swirling right in there. You know, if they want to play that way sometime when they go for an application, that's what we're going to do to them. We're going to tell them, hey, you can't have all that water just with fertilizers, pesticides going strictly into that location. Like everybody else, we require them to have some kind of a berm. So, I don't know, it's disappointing to me.
As a private property owner, if they made an application before you,
We'll
they
deal
would
with
be-
it, we'll deal with it when the application
I'm
comes.
done. Yeah,
But
thanks.
no, and I appreciate the thought, and we may actually have a case later where
Okay.
your thoughts can come to fruition. But this is a safety issue. At this point in time, us who drive over Hanson Road are trusting Ed Gentile's people who go out there. I mean, I saw the pictures. We have a bridge expert here who told us that this is a safety issue at this point in time. And you know, I have four engineers who are telling me this is a safety issue, got to get it replaced. They've come up with the best solution of these four minds can we put together. We got to get this thing done. So, Carolyn, do you want to say something?
Yeah, I agree with that. But just going along with what Bill was mentioning before, Mr. Ives had showed us some photos at the last public hearing of the waterway going through the country club, and there had been some scour on either side of the waterway. And then there was another photo taken some point later, and sod had been replaced, and it went all the way down to. We did not get any application for that work. So do they have like a long-standing permit to be able to replace sod and do things right up to the water course without?
Rick?
No.
No, and at some point, Rick should have a conversation with their greenskeeper, okay, to make sure that, hey, the town of Darien has rules, DPC has rules given by the state, they're endorsed by the RTM, and they, like any other private property owner, have to obey them. Okay, and so that's just the way it is.
And that would be with the fertilizers and all of
Yeah.
that? Having
No,
a
absolutely.
wetland buffer and
Right.
everything?
I can tell you, I've had applications, in my tenure here, we've had applications from Woodway, we've had applications from
We did
the Country Club of Darien,
last year.
and I've never had one from Weber. And it's sort of like, it's possible. Okay, yeah, it's possible, but, it's something that I think about. Bridge replacements, they have bridges that go over, there's a lot of water on Weber. I used to caddy there. So I know what they are, and I know the bridges have all changed since I was a caddy. So hopefully. And so, when they replace a bridge, they should come to us because that's work in the wetlands. And so that we're going to have a conversation with the greenskeeper of Weber. That said, is there anybody else who would like to comment on this application?
I'll just add one thought, Eric, if I may. I'm thrilled to hear Mr. Ostafine and your meetings that took place back in your offices with the neighbor. I think the neighbor at 88 Hanson, I believe.
Correct.
And I will just echo what I said at our last meeting altogether. To me, the urgency of this repair takes precedent over everything, including Bill's comments. The preparation and the detail that you gentlemen prepared and provided to us, no contest. If you want me to vote now, I say I vote for, let's proceed. Thank you for your good work.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We are trying very hard. I appreciate that.
Yep. Okay, is there anybody, other commissioners who would like to comment? No? No? Okay, Rick, let's close the public hearing.
Yeah, vote to close the public.
Okay, can you make a motion to?
Yes, I make a motion that we close the public hearing that is currently open for EPC 05-2024 with respect to the Hanson Road Bridge Replacement Project.
Second, the closure of the public meeting for 05-2024.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for all your good efforts to fix this. Okay, moving on. EPC 07-2024, Town of Darien Environmental Protection Commission. Amendment of regulated wetlands and watercourses map, amendment of the regulated wetlands and watercourses map to incorporate new site-specific wetland soils data and survey information collected by the commission since the map was last revised in July of 2021. Wow, been that long, almost 3 years. Rick?
The regulations provide for amendments to the general wetlands map, and the idea being that as we receive appropriately developed information pertaining to wetland soils and they're surveyed, we maintain copies of those maps, we compile those maps, and then periodically we will update the map. And there is process outlined in the regulations, and essentially you have to have that updated map generated in draft form, and then you hold a public hearing. So tonight is this evening's public hearing, basically the same standards for the review of that map occurs. We publish notice in the Darien Times twice. We sent notice to the town clerk. We hung draft maps in the building. We provided a list of the affected properties, and if you reviewed those items, and you wouldn't be able to tell by looking at the map, but if you look at the property list, there was probably 144 maps that I compiled as I got them, checked them, saved them electronically, gave them to our GIS consultant, and then they updated the map. But the list generally, or I would say generally, but the most is a clarification of the location of the wetlands. Some were greater, some were less extensive. And then in fact there was some handful where a soil scientist's report showed that there were no wetlands on the property, where on the general map it did. So that was the process. We published notice, so again, we did listed in the agenda. We had one comment on the map, on the mapping, and it came from a Ralph Oben, and he had indicated that he would have liked things such as climate change to go into the processing of the map, which we cannot do because in Connecticut soil wetlands are based solely on soil types. And Mr. Ginsburg has responded back to him, and so unless there were some major issues that you can think of or some questions, the process here would be to close the public hearing, and we would publish notice, we'd formalize the map, we'd give it to the town clerk, and we'd have it for another couple years. Again, you wouldn't want to do it more than every couple of years, so you get a good handful of maps to do that with. So,
Commissioner, have any question?
But the process is after it's done, they get notified, and then they can finally see that each of these people get notified.
they don't
when it's
get
done.
individual notice that's published in the newspaper.
Oh, okay, so they won't know it. Most of them won't even know it.
Right, it's
No.
published in the newspaper,
Okay.
and it goes to the town clerk, and it's,
Okay.
again, posted online, et cetera.
Well, most of this information has come to us
Yeah, usually.
via applications,
Right.
so that when somebody comes and goes, hey, this isn't, or this is, then they paid for the survey, and they paid for the land, so hopefully they read it. So that's why.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify, I know the answer, but just so the public knows that these map changes are based on soil surveys that have been conducted by Connecticut licensed soil scientists. It's not just someone saying, oh, you know, my stream doesn't go that far, you know, I mean, it's a formal report.
It's a soils report,
Yeah.
and then it's referenced on, you know, surveyed flags,
Yeah.
showing the actual location.
Rick, is this map complete in terms of named waterways? There are some waterways that are named in here. Are there other waterways that are not reflected, named on the map that might be susceptible to the 100-foot setback?
I think the major ones that we reference in our regulations are on the map, but I can certainly verify.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? No? Can I have a motion to close the public hearing?
Yes, I'll make that motion, Mr. Chairman, to close the public hearing with respect to EPC number 7-2024 regarding the amendment of the regulated wetlands and watercourses map.
Second, the motion to close public hearing on 07-2024.
All in favor? Great. Okay, now we're going to move on to new business. New business is EPC 08-2024, 1 Thorndale Circle, TCNE Metro Development LLC, to demolish existing commercial structures, parking, and other related facilities, and construct a new residential community consisting of 5 multifamily buildings, garages, amenity areas, driveways, parking, drainage, utilities, landscaping, and other related features in and approximate to the wetlands, watercourses, and special flood areas. The approximately 11.05 acre property, which currently supports the Thorndale Circle Office Park, is generally bordered by Interstate I-95 to the north, Hecker Avenue to the south, Thorndale Circle, Boston Post Road to the east, and Freight Court to the west. The property consists of the following parcels. 1 Thorndale Circle, map 39, lot 18. The zone is DO. It is approximately 1.195 acres. 16 Thorndale Circle, map number 39, lot 11. Zone is DO. It's approximately 2.361 acres. 22 Thorndale Circle, map is 39, the lot is 17B. The zone is DO, and it is approximately 4.327 acres. And the last piece of parcel is Hecker Avenue, map number 39, lot 9. The zone is R1/3, and it is approximately 2.4 acres. Rick?
Mr. Chairman, the application has made its way to the agenda this evening to mark the start of the review process and to mark the start of the statutory time clock for which an application can be decided. It is also on the agenda to establish if the commission believes that the application would be in the public interest and would warrant a public hearing. And the commission will decide the reasons why a public hearing would be needed on this particular application. I have visited the site. I'll be generating a list of information I think that I would need to conduct a review. There's a lot of information here. And if you had the opportunity to review the information and to review the site, if you have any very preliminary comments that we can incorporate into our initial review correspondence, that would be particularly helpful.
Lauren, would you like to?
Yeah, I'd be in favor of a public hearing for this one in particular, just because of the nature of how big it is and how many parties are affected.
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
That's stating the obvious.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't think there's a
you
person
called
here
me
that's against the
first.
public hearing. So no, I've had, some people I know have come up to me and talked about this, about the size of development and the impact. So
Yeah,
I
massive.
clearly in the public interest, I think we'll have public commentary, significant public commentary on this. So I won't waste anybody's time. I think we'll take a vote for a public hearing, but I think it's unanimous that we should have a public hearing.
Yep.
Okay, so is there anything else that you'd like to contribute?
No, nothing major. I think just all the general information that we typically ask for.
You finished? Yeah, okay. So I thought the project narrative was very good. I thought it was very well organized, complete, and I appreciate the fact that it was kind of geared toward what our purview is, so I like that. It seems like from an environmental standpoint, there are some measures that are being taken that are going to improve the site in terms of what our interests are. I would just comment that with regard to the management of invasive material, I would just like to state that it be done by hand and that chemicals not be used. I think that, as we get into the wetlands functions and values report and impact assessment and the engineering report. Once we dive into those, I'll have a lot more questions, but those were just my first initial reactions.
I'll make a very brief comment, Mr. Chairman. From a prior life, I'm fully aware of who this development company is. And I take comfort in knowing that they are one of America's, that's not an exaggeration, largest developers of projects of this nature. Therefore, the engineers, the consultants, the environmental impact professionals they might be using will be second to none. The standards that they will set for this project, whether we like the scale of it or anything, that's not I'm just talking about the balance sheet and the experience of this development company. They're in the top 3 in the United States of America. I take a lot of comfort from that.
No comments.
I need some more research, and I haven't been out to the site. But back to my flooding concerns tonight, since the flooding on that same river I just talked about before, and it happens right there. We can only hope that they engineer every bit they can to infiltrate and put as little possible into that Stony Brook
They're
piece.
expanding the riparian buffers there
Yeah,
by quite a lot.
I did quickly look, and they have the open basin areas where the water quality. But if they can, and I know it's an improvement probably about how much discharge is going in now versus that. But if they can squeeze every bit they can to put it in the ground and not have to go in there, that would be excellent.
Yeah,
thanks.
thank you, Bill. And I think this is what I was referring to. There's a whole, I did walk the site, and I think the initial plans I've seen, they're pulling away from from Stony Brook, et cetera. And Lord knows, it needs some cleanup there.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
there's lots of cleanup that has to be done, but to a development this size, that's they can handle that. There's a whole lot flood area there just before Hecker that I'd like all these experts of this company to take a look at, okay, to see what they can do, okay, to help us, because Stony Brook is an issue. And the downstream from Stony Brook from there is, if they could provide expertise to help us, we have an opportunity here because they're going to have everything there.
Yeah. No,
Okay,
these are
and as I said,
Yeah,
and
I
to
worked
take
with them
advantage
too.
of that expertise to help us, to help us say, hey, are we doing the maximum we can for this town? Because tonight, okay, with the 2 inches or plus whatever sort of rain we're supposed to get, is sort of pointing out to us that we got to do something. So Jay, that's on you to get through. If anybody else has anything,
I also walked the site quite thoroughly, Eric. I was quite interested when this came up, and read, I believe, all the materials that Rick has been good enough to circulate. And there was a lot of work already done on their recognition of improvement to that waterway as it comes out of 95. And so I think you're going to find that is their intent.
good.
and we can, hold our feet to the fire.
We are the
Just that.
Environmental Protection Commission.
Absolutely.
And so when they come here, the 175, places that they're thinking of building there, appreciate all that. That's planning and zoning's concern. My thing is Stony Brook, and there's all sorts of little spurs of wetlands there that I saw along 985, so I'll be very interested in that. Now, I do need a motion to get a public hearing on this.
Yes, you do, and I'm happy to make a motion to recommend that EPC 08-2024 with respect to 1 Thurndall Circle be moved to a public hearing.
Second that motion.
All in favor? Thank you.
And that was for public interest.
Public
Public interest, yes.
Yes.
Okay,
Thank you, Rick.
moving on, old business, EPC 33-2023, 19 Brush Island, M. Godino, to construct a fixed pile-supported pier with steps and removable floating rock in and approximate to Holly Pond and other areas of resource. The property lies along the north side of Brush Island Road, approximately 1,200 feet west of Nearwater Lane, and is identified as map number 56, lot 20, zone is R1, and it is approximately 2.165 acres.
Very good.
Rick, you want to,
Yeah, just a brief summary of the application. You noted what the application is for, and is for that a very small fixed pile-supported pier, steps, and a removable floating dock in a portion of Holly Pond. The property itself currently supports a single-family dwelling, driveway, walkways, patios, walls, drainage, and other related features. It also has an in-ground pool. It's served by on-site septic system and public water. It also has developed uplands. It has tidal wetlands on the property. It has, the estuarine embayment, which is Holly Pond itself. Also has special flood hazard areas. If for those of you who have been on the board for a couple of years, there's been an application on this property for the pool, the fence, and other related features that has just recently been finished up and certainly brought into compliance with the conditions of that permit. I've developed an agenda summary report for this. You will note in that report that the dock has been fully permitted under a DEP permit. They intend to construct the dock. We've gotten clarification there'll be no upland encroachments except for perhaps workers walking to the site itself. We had some initial concerns about driving equipment because, quite honestly, the site is extremely tight. It is very restricted in terms of not only the presence of wetlands and other resources and trees of concern, but steep slopes, and it's got a lot of it structure there. Pools, fences, septic, drainage, that would make an upland encroachment pretty difficult to achieve. It would probably require a lot more disturbance. But the applicant's representative has confirmed that all the work will be done water by water. We'll bring a low-profile barge in, work with the tides, put the piles in, put the rest of the structure in a short period of time in which to do it. Remove the structure, the barge during times of low tide, so they're working with the tide itself. And those are pretty general, pretty standard application process. So there's no land-based machine activities associated with this project. Applicant, again, per the permit, will utilize erosion controls as necessary, which in all likelihood, there's not much of a disturbance like an excavation. And further note that the DEP applies standard conditions that it applies to things such as fuel storage, material stockpiling, and flood emergency response that they build into the permit. Basically, you don't work in times of flooding, you don't fuel, you don't repair, you don't park vehicles, et cetera, down close to areas of resource. The applicant has gone Beyond that too, and in response to our question concerns, the engineer has certified that the, the project will be flood-proof, capable of withstanding the flooding. And again, has provided a certification to that extent. Just for the record, there's about 62 square feet of the upland review area, about 100 square feet of open water that will be temporarily or permanently affected by the project. And the last thing is, again, in response to the questions and concerns by the commission, no lighting or utilities associated with the dock. And again, note that given the de minimis upland encroachments, they have not provided like a landscaping or mitigation plan for this. Again, given the scope, the small encroachment, and the lack of upland involvement, that could have been pretty land disturbing. Mr. Hiltz is here this evening in case you have any questions. Unavailable for questions. And that's it.
Mr. Hilt?
Yes, Mr. Talamelli's pretty much gone over everything. You know, there was some questions about upland.
Just state your name for the record, please.
For the record, John Hiltz representing Mr. Gardino. And there was some question about upland disturbance. Basically, that part of the narrative initially was put in there. At that point, Mr. Gardino had not retained the services of a marine contractor, so therefore, we wanted to keep open the ability for someone to come in via upland, should they decide to do so. In the interim, what's transpired is that he's reached out to GNC Marine contractors from Norwalk. They actually have several projects in Holly Pond. They want to gang them all together because getting in and over the weir is obviously an issue.
I was going to say, there's not much draft there.
Not a lot, you know, you have to, you know, well, actually, today is a great day to do it. He actually went to Greenwich yesterday and went back. I said, "You went to Greenwich yesterday?" He said, "Yeah, we had a real short window." And I said, "Okay, you know, better you than." I was looking at whitecaps on Long Island Sound. But in any event, yeah, it's timing, you know, basically on a, you know, on very high tide.
What do they draft?
His smaller barge only drafts about 2 feet. So he can go in, you know, on a high tide. You know, I mean, it's, you know, it's one of those things, where you push the barge over with a small workboat and you have this small workboat zip around and, you know, that's it. You're not bringing any deep draft vessel in there, obviously. So that's, you know, that's been addressed. Other than that, you know, Mr. Talamelli obviously, you know, pointed out everything's pretty much prefabricated at the contractor's yard. In these instances, there's not a lot of actual on-site construction. The pier is actually built in the yard. It's brought on the barge. The piles are laid out. You know, you basically get a surveyor in there to provide center line and elevation. The workers go in. They'll put the locations of the pile in. Barge comes in on the tide, pops the piles in, withdraws. You know, hand carpentry thereafter to put up the split caps. Barge comes back in, places the prefabricated pier on the split caps, withdraws, and once that's connected, comes back in, drives the piles for anchoring the float, and there you have it. So it's a pretty, you know, they do it very quickly. You know, there's nothing to be gained by camping out on a job when you're building a dock. You know, you're in and out quickly. So that's pretty much the gist of it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Bill, you have any?
Yeah, the lighting, I'm glad there's no lighting involved with
Yeah.
the dock. We're trying to get that dark sky feeling all along the edge line. We know we can't for the houses, especially.
Right. No, I mean, that's, you know, I think you probably are aware that I think the state actually has promulgated, I don't think the state has, but an agency, a group, a nonprofit has actually promulgated dark sky,
Right. Especially along the waterfront.
you know, language, yeah.
So there's not going to be a terrace or anything off of that dock?
No.
Where could put a lighting? So it's
No,
not
I
on the
mean,
dock, but now they put there.
have you been to the site at all?
I
or-
did.
Yeah.
I
so
live
you-
on Holly Pond.
Oh, okay,
I
so
know.
yeah, you basically walk down that little path. Wouldn't be, you know, when you have that nice pool up the hill there and all that stuff, I don't think it's really,
Yeah, some
you know.
people
a
try
great-
to, some
Yeah.
people try to develop every square foot of their property.
Yeah, I noticed that. You do too, huh? Yeah, but it's not part of, you know, there's no indication that Mr. Gaudino intends to do so.
Good, thanks.
No questions? No?
I have no questions.
Yeah, I was going to ask about, in the narrative, it does say that there's the possibility of the land-based crane in the upland review area if the barge is unable to access the site, but that is now a non-starter.
I submitted
old
for
one.
Mr. Talamelli, you know, he
Okay.
asked that I revise the narrative and that, basically take that last paragraph of the original narrative,
Okay.
cut it out.
So
you
that,
know,
that will
yeah.
not be happening.
And again, that was basically in there to provide the,
If they couldn't get over. the-
well, it was,
Yeah.
it's more, you're trying not to preclude other builders from, you know, bidding on the job. You know,
Okay.
some would want to do that, some may want to do that, but generally, they don't do that. So that's why, you know, we went with GNC.
Okay, and I also wanted to just reinforce that there will be no lighting there, which you had stated and which Bill just clarified. And then just like a couple of little things, just because these bug me, but in the Connecticut Department of Energy and Environmental Protection approval, the size is different than what is on all
Did
the
you
plans.
receive the Scrivener correction?
I only have the one that is dated. Let's see if there's a date at the end. But
No, I know what you mean. In the
Yeah.
original document, there was a discrepancy on the
Yeah, it
action
says that
between the
it's
plans and the
14.
language.
Says that it's 14
And
instead of
subsequent to
11.
that time, when you know, submitted your questions, I went back to DEP and was given what they termed to be a Scrivener correction,
Okay.
which basically states that
It's
this is,
11.
this is what
Okay.
we're building, and, you know, sorry for the mistakes.
Okay, so that's okay. And so this is for paddlecraft only?
Yeah, there's not a lot of water in there, obviously.
Okay, all right. I just want to check that. And I noticed, Rick, that in November you had emailed Stamford's town clerk, just notifying them of this project. Did you ever get any kind of response? They didn't have any issues or anything?
No.
So, okay, there was never a response there, so I just wanted to ask. That's all I have.
I understand that the work is, it's very small, it's a very small platform, and that they're doing it from the water side.
Yep.
There is still an effect of 62 square feet, I think it said, of upland review, so just like a very small piece, and then.
When you think about it, it's actually 4 square feet, because that's really what the pilings impact. Everything else is elevated above.
Okay, so minimal impact.
Yep.
I was wondering, so just for consistency's sake, you know, we typically have some sort of planting plan or something requirement. For this, we haven't seen one, right?
No.
Would there be any opportunities to maybe throw a couple plants in that could be helpful to kind of mitigate a little bit, this little bit of, you know,
If you
damage
think
to the
about it, I
environment?
mean, have you visited the site?
I have not yet.
Okay, you know, the site is, you know, when you get to that point, it's pretty much scrub vegetation. I mean, it's naturally occurring. There's no landscaping per se at that area. Sure,
But
we
the
could,
site is
we could plant
wetlands.
any number of things, but they're naturally propagating anyway. So it's, you know, there's, you know, you have the 4 square feet of pilings. If I plant something within that same
Well, it wouldn't be
elevation.
like on top of that. I mean,
Well, you
it's
know,
offset, like you're offsetting the damage that you're doing to the environment.
Right, no,
That's the idea.
I
right?
understand your
Yeah.
intent. It's just
Right.
kind of like, if you think, of it, it's analogous to this. This is what happens a lot. Let's say you're driving pilings in an area of Spartina alterniflora, okay? You know, like cordgrass.
Sure.
And I'm often, you know, asked about, well, can you plant more Spartina? Okay. And I don't know if you're familiar with Spartina at all.
I don't.
Okay, it's a tidal wetland grass.
Okay.
It grows in a very distinct tidal range, okay? You can't, you know, like you'll notice like there's always an edge on the water and there's always an edge on the land side. It doesn't go too high, it doesn't go too low. And, in response to those kind of questions, I say, number one, it's a rhizomatous plant. It grows on runners. Okay, so when you point a pile and you push it in, you don't like have a round face of the piling per se. You generally push that out. You move, you're basically displacing it, not killing it. So if you have a continuous band of Spartina, right, within the property owner's waterfront, I can't go landward because it won't grow. It won't grow if it's too high up on the tidal range. I can't go waterward because, again, it won't grow if it's too low. That analogy, if you think about what we're dealing with here, there's plants. There's naturally occurring vegetation all along that
Sure.
waterfront.
And there is in every project, right?
Right.
But every project also does some degree of environmental damage, some degree. whether
Sure,
it be
no,
very
I mean,
small, very big.
but by our breathing, we're doing environmental
Yes,
damage.
true. But for the sake of consistency, what we do with others is if there's, opportunities to mitigate some of that damage, that's encouraged.
What would you suggest?
So the property had some wetlands, right? And it had some, and it was also in upland review areas, right? So when I go out there, I can certainly, take a look, but, if you think there's opportunities as the expert, I think that might also be helpful. Just for a
Again,
couple little things, but
it's-
if it's not possible, it's not possible.
Well, I mean, anything's possible. It's in my mind, it's really more, whereas, you're aiming for dark skies. A lot of people are aiming for renaturalization of plantings. They don't want to see plantings that are not natural. They don't want to see plantings that are not native to the specific area, right? All the vegetation in this area, particularly in the area of the proposed pier, is native. There's no introduced, there's no planting per se. There's no, again, it's a non-landscaped area. Now, if you visit the site and, you see something that you would want to see enhanced, for example, like, I don't know,
Sir?
Yeah.
don't need to be
I'd like to
Right.
intervene. Okay, clearly you're the expert,
right,
okay? To advance on this topic.
Right.
I think if we could just say, you go back, think about it, you communicate it to Mr. Talamelli, okay?
Right.
And whatever, you're the expert, I'm gonna leave it in your hands.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay, to sit there and think about it, and if you come up with something, just communicate it to Rick.
sure,
And then Rick will approve it on a staff basis.
that's fine. I mean, what I'll do is I'll
Okay.
go revisit the site, see what's there that looks, that's, a positive
Yeah.
addition, and then get back to Rick and say, how about we plant X
This-
number
I
of
don't-
these?
I don't wanna hold this up.
No, I understand.
Because it's gonna be high tide soon.
If it's
Sorry,
not- if
that was-
not already.
Sorry about that.
Is that
But
your car?
I do want to advance this.
Yeah,
I
in any
do want
event,
to
right.
advance this, and so if you're okay with that?
Yeah.
If you're okay with that, then let's
That's fine.
Let's move on.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Okay, is there anybody else that has anything for 19 Brush? No? Okay.
So the idea is to direct me to do a resolution in advance of the next time they get together.
That's correct.
Right.
Thank you.
Rick, do you want, prior to that, do you want me to go visit the site and just give you some plant
Yeah, we'll
ideas?
get some ideas.
Okay.
We'll do
Yeah,
it.
you can throw it into the
We'll throw it as a
resolution.
condition.
Sounds good. Anything else?
If it's warranted.
No, I mean,
I'm not, I don't want to stuff,
in the great scheme of things, 4 or 5 additional plants really aren't a deal breaker in this
okay, but the
matter.
types of
Yeah.
plants are going to be determined by you,
Yeah.
because you know what's going to grow. I don't want to see, because, I've seen too often people put plants in and,
They don't do well.
square peg, round hole sort of thing, right?
Right,
And so-
I fully understand.
So,
Yeah.
I trust your expertise on
Sure,
that.
not a problem.
Okay, because
All right.
I want to go back and see them in 2 or 3 years,
Flourishing,
flourishing as opposed to something dead.
as opposed to, fire hazard. Very
Right.
good, understood.
Great, thank
All
you.
right, anything else?
That's it, thank
All right,
you.
thank you for your time.
Okay,
Have a good evening.
thank you, you
Safe
too.
home, everybody.
We got, The next item of business is EPC 02-2024, 12 Libby Lane, J. Dolce and J. Dolce, to remove and alter vegetation, regrade, install, replace drainage structures, to construct a patio, install a wall, regrade and repave a driveway, landscape, and implement other related activities in and approximate to wetlands and water courses. The property lies along the west side of Libby Lane, approximately 450 feet north of Middlesex, and is identified as map number 9, lot number 54. The zone is R1, and is approximately 1.01 acres. Rick?
Mr. Chairman, this application has been initially before the commission, and some draft comments were provided. I did a review and formalized the information that we felt was necessary to move the application forward to come up with the best product. The application is specifically for removing and altering vegetation, regrading, installing and replacing drainage structures, constructing a patio, installing a wall, grading, repaving a driveway, landscape, and implement other activities proximate to the site's wetlands and water courses. The purpose was proposed for better managing and restoring positive drainage on the property as the primary objective of the application. If you recall, the property is relatively flat, has areas of wetlands and water courses, a larger water course along around one perimeter, a lesser intermittent water course that's along the road, portions of which are fed, although linked to wetlands on adjoining properties. A substantial amount of water comes from some pumps and other drainage on the adjoining property owner's property that contributes rather significantly to what goes through the site. Issues that were observed on the property include a crushed pipe under the existing driveway that is not allowing for positive flows through the intermittent water course, the not positive drainage along the perimeter of the dwelling, which leads to ponded water along the detached accessory structure of garage that's on the property, and non-functioning roof drains, and damaged PVC pipes. Pretty much of a mess in terms of grading and the existing structures. A lot of time and effort's been going into the renovation of the dwelling, and it was time now to deal with the site conditions. And it's a range of activities, again, involving the removal of trees and regrading and repairing and replacing structures, coming up with a small patio and small terrace areas, and again, improving the overall drainage on the site. The applicant has provided a detailed site plan, and there's a landscaping plan that have been supplied. You'll note that about, and I want to get into the record, 675 square feet of wetlands, 60 linear feet of watercourse, and 15,000 square feet, plus or minus 289, of the upland review area are temporarily or permanently affected by the construction and the activity. The grade changes are, although rather de minimis, have been proposed to, again, provide positive drainage on the property. Approximately 13 of the larger trees on the site will be removed, but most of those are beyond the limits of our upland review area. One of the things that this commission noted as being certainly a concern is as they do the replacement of the pipe under the driveway, there's a 48-inch maple, and the applicant was asked to look at it in terms of, is there a possibility of saving it? Mr. Rookville will be able to provide some additional information on that, but generally felt that wetland impacts could be minimized if the head wall is kept in its current location. It'll probably be better to remove the tree and implement the extensive planting plan that's being proposed. Issues of drainage and water quality. The engineer has asserted that, given the scope of the improvements, it's less than 1,000 square feet. There was not a formal drainage report done, but there has been commentary provided that, given the grading and the swales and the other improvements they're making, that there will be no adverse impact on drainage in the adjoining properties. And the town's consulting engineer had reviewed this information and has granted their endorsement of the project, agreeing with the study methodology and the improvements that are being made. Water quality has been addressed with a basic sediment erosion control plan, temporary provisions, perimeter silt fences, tracking pads, riprap outfall protection, final stabilization measures. Again, riprap along the head and the end walls, and for an existing sump pit and water line. They've also done things like controlling the water during, again, dig in the driest conditions, a temporary sump pit in order to redirect the water during the time that they're doing this work. A really extensive wetlands buffer plan has been provided, and that's been provided not only for the larger, deeper channel that parallels the northern and western portions of the site, but also in the vicinity of the renovated driveway along the wetlands in the front of the property. And I've summarized have an accounting here of the trees, shrubs, and ground covers that are being proposed. It's a good mix of conservation valued plantings. They will also do things such as removal of some invasives by hand. They've provided a firm line of lawn and landscape on here, so the spread of the manicured surfaces will be kept to an area that this commission endorses. And they've also provided a demarcation feature, deeply embedded boulders. It's in combination with the planting, where you have a random kind of limit of lawn and landscape. Now you're going to have something that's more firm and ranges from like 15 to 20 feet. And that's it. And again, they've embraced some of the recommendations of the commission as alternatives. And I'll let the applicant make their brief presentation and be available for answering questions.
It's all yours.
Thanks, Rick. Very, very thorough. Harry Roachville, with McCoy Engineering, professional engineer in the state of Connecticut, representing the Dolces. Property is 12 Libby Lane, located on the west side of Libby Lane. As Rick had mentioned, there's a water course that runs along the northern property line. It's fed by a 30-inch concrete culvert here, exits the property, 30-inch concrete culvert here. There's another intermittent water course in the center of the property, surrounded by a small pocket of wetlands shown here. That historically conveyed across under the driveway via a 12-inch corrugated metal pipe to the larger water course. Has since been crushed and silted in, creating sort of the standing water issue all around this front yard, which I'm sure you've seen if you've visited the site. Also, as Rick had mentioned, there's a neighbor's sump pump over here that continuously runs every time that, at least I've been on site, that contributes to all of the ponding in this area, as well as just bad drainage patterns, as Rick had mentioned. I'm sure if you've visited, you've noticed the site has not been maintained really at all. Our clients, the Dolces, have renovated the house, and as Rick said, would love to repair the site and restore positive flows as much as possible. This pink dash line here is the 50-foot upland review area, so you'll see that most of the property is within the upland review area. So we're proposing several measures to improve the drainage movement on site as well as water quality. As Rick had mentioned, we're really not increasing impervious area much. I believe it's approximately 800 square feet, which is less than 1,000 square feet required by the town's drainage manual. And as Rick had mentioned, we did receive positive endorsement from Joe Canis. The improvements that we're proposing are to regrade the driveway with a cross pitch that will drain over a flush curb through a water quality swale, all the way from the garage to here, where it could flow across into a swale and then into the intermittent water course here. We're also proposing plantings to further improve that water quality in addition to the vegetated swale that we're proposing. Minor grading in this front yard area to promote some positive pitch to that same water course. This area is not wetlands, but if you visit the site, it is very wet just because it is an extended low spot in that area. We aren't proposing to remove any trees in there, just very minor grading that won't impact the root structures of those trees. Also, this seems to be the only property on the street that does not have a curb or a sort of berm on the front of their property. So we are proposing a minor 6-inch berm to keep that runoff off, this town's runoff off the street. There was a catch basin right here. So that's another thing that contributes to all the water that gets into this front yard. There's some issues in the backyard as well. All the runoff essentially just goes straight to the back of the house and would just pool against the house here. So again, very minor grading, mostly outside of the upland review area behind the garage to sort of push this water to either our new grass swale or to the existing water course. There's an existing retaining wall here that has, I guess, fallen over and since been removed. We're going to repair that wall similar to it was before, and again promote some sheet flow across the area between the wall and the house towards that water course. This whole part of the water course will essentially be planted in a larger buffer, will be installed to filter that runoff as it goes north. There's also some roof leader pipes that go under the driveway have all been crushed. We're going to replace those and provide outlet protection prior to the water course. So that'll be some disturbance actually within the wetlands area, but it is just to replace an existing pipe and improve the conditions of it. And then the main thing for this, for the water course here is, we want to restore that positive flow going north by excavating by hand just to slightly improve the water flow here. But also we need to reconstruct that inlet and make sure it's stable for future use and that it can be maintained. So we're proposing a stone and mortar head wall with riprap inlet protection and a new 12-inch HDPE pipe across the driveway to the same outlet location that it has now, but with also an improved outlet structure for slope stabilization over there before water discharges to the larger water course. As Rick mentioned, the 48-inch maple, we are proposing for it to be removed. We chose this location for the head wall because it's outside of the wetlands, so we wouldn't have to construct that in the wetlands, increasing the disturbance within the wetlands. So alternatively, we decided to move it up and just extend the drainage ditch to it and then replant more trees around it, limiting disturbance infilling that we would have to do in the wetlands if we installed that inlet in the wetlands. Also, removing and replacing that pipe within that root structure would probably be detrimental to the tree anyway. So that was another reason that we chose to do that and ultimately remove the tree. It's shown in green here. You'll see extensive erosion controls around the area of disturbance. The site is fairly flat, so just a single row of silt fence is being proposed and it should be sufficient. And then during construction, we are proposing a temporary pump bypass so they can restore this channel in the dry. That'll discharge to a silt filter sock here, and then sheet flow into the water course just as a temporary measure. I believe that touches on everything I have. Kate Throckmorton with Environmental Land Solutions is here, and she can review the planting plan, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you have after Kate's presentation.
Thank you.
Just state your name for the record when you're ready, please.
You bet. Hi, good evening. For the record, Kate Throckmorton, licensed landscape architect with Environmental Land Solutions. It's been a long time since I've been back here in person. Hello, everyone. We prepared the planting plan to complement McCord's site plan. As already been said, the primary wetland is on the north side of the property, and there is this central wetland. We've also just noted for the record that there is a small offsite wetland, and we've included that, or approximated that upland review area. There's no work in there, but we want to make sure that there's full disclosure on the review area. As was mentioned, there's going to be some tree removal at the front, some 2 old spruce trees, the large maple, and a handful of trees are immediately around the garage and adjacent to the driveway. And we believe that that will be open up kind of the trees that have crowded in around these structures that have made maintenance a bit of a hazard, and will improve the drainage situation. For the planting, we've focused a lot of effort around this work area where there's going to be some temporary wetland disturbance. The whole area will be revegetated, and the invasive vines and such will be removed, and the whole area will be replanted. And that area does include replacement of the red maple with a swamp white oak, some understory planting of amelanchier, shrubs, and perennials, primarily along the driveway. We actually had a long discussion with that about the owner, and primarily it's a very tight site if you've had the opportunity to get there. And we did not want the situation where we were putting shrubs right next to the driveway and they were overcoming the driveway, and then in a short period of time they all get cut down. So, so the perennial buffer is specifically there to be able to grow up in the summer. It naturally dies back in the winter to kind of prevent that infringement onto the driveway. We also included a demarcation and planting buffer along the back edge of the property. We're going to be there's going to be opening up a little bit of lawn area, so that's clear. There's going to be some clearing, some minor clearing of euonymus and replacement with viburnum along this edge of an existing utility yard. And then in speaking with Rick since the initial meeting, we extended that planting and demarcation all the way up to the street, so that essentially this whole buffer along the watercourse will be clearly delineated and expanded slightly. All the plants are native and are appropriately chosen for the wetness and sun exposure for the area. And be happy to answer any questions.
How big are the trees? I think I see a size on there. I didn't see it before. How big are the trees, the ones that you're putting in?
The shade tree is going in at 2.5-inch caliper. We've got some screening trees in the back, some hollies that are going in at 5 to 6 feet. The amelanchier are going in at 6 to 7 feet. All the shrubs are going in at 3 to 4 feet, except for the leucothui, which comes in smaller containers in the nurseries. Okay. And all the perennials are 1-gallon containers.
Okay. I guess I might have a question for you. Well, just in general, were any other alternatives considered for the driveway? So we're adding impervious surface area, right, to a site that's already got crazy stuff going on with water in general. Were any alternatives considered for making the driveway more porous, or maybe kind of thinking in that direction?
No, just due to how wet the site is, I don't think they would function properly if we use a different surface for the driveway. And also just because there's really no room for infiltration by having a porous surface. I think it would just become more of an ice hazard in the winter. So we chose to keep the asphalt surface that's there now. Again, we pretty much kept the same footprint of the driveway. We're just regrading it and improving our water quality elsewhere with all the water quality swales and vegetation that the runoff will have a chance to run through and filter before it enters the water course. So I guess to answer your question, we did consider it, but I don't think it would be feasible.
Okay, and did you look at Coltex or other solutions like that, or that's not feasible either?
Well, one, they're not required for this project, and two, they wouldn't be feasible just due to how high the groundwater table is on this site.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I know it's a tough site, and I saw how wet it was and how difficult it is to remediate that. I had the same concern about increasing impervious surface. I think most of it is from a patio that's being installed in the back. I just had the same reaction that on a site that's difficult, wet, might it not be better to try not to increase the impervious surface, but there's no feasible and prudent alternative?
So, so increasing the impervious surface on this one was also fairly strategic in how you handle the drainage. Right now, there's a wood deck there. So by replacing with a patio, we're allowing that runoff to pitch away from the house. Okay. So that's also helping with our drainage. As I mentioned during my presentation, that all comes to the back of the house. So by having that patio there as well, we can sheet flow at about 2% across the patio and then through the lawn. Whereas now there's no way to do that with the wood deck. So by removing a wood deck, not including that as impervious, and replacing with a patio, that's sort of our increase there. And then the other increase is just for the driveway here, just this small triangle, and that's because there's really no room to back out of the garage. Yeah. And again, just gives us an opportunity to add a curb and a small retaining wall to stop that runoff and convey it towards our swale before it gets to the back of the house and settles against the foundation.
And I think it's 11 trees that are in the outside of the upland review area that are being removed in the back of the house. What is the benefit in terms of drainage of removing those 11 trees?
Well, but some of them need to be removed for the grading that we're doing, both along the swale. I think I sort of marked them with a little orange dot here. So a lot of them have to be removed just as a result of the grading we have to do to create those swales and the regrading in the back. I think that's 9 of them, so pretty much all that you had mentioned. They just need to be removed due to the grading and creating those swales. So I guess the benefit for drainage would be just being able to recreate that positive sheet flow across the property.
I mean, I think it's all good about the boulder demarcation, the native plants, removing the invasives, and I assume that's by hand. I think you might have mentioned that.
I believe so, right, Kate?
Yes, by hand, okay. And removal of debris. I mean, that's all, improving the conservation value of the property. One thing, and I'm surprised that you missed this, is the maintenance plan, I think should. Thank you. I think it's a little inconsistent. It does say, under service procedures, it says shall, but up above it says it's recommended that each facility, it uses should instead of shall, and I think it should be shall, in terms of the stormwater facility management plan. And is that often enough? Twice a year, I think, was recommended?
Yeah, that's often enough. We've had success with that.
And
or if you notice something, believe
right.
you something.
Yeah, and then lastly, just the maple tree in the front. You're saying that even if an alternative location for the piping and the tree didn't have to be removed, it would still die off eventually because, could you?
I can't say that for sure, but the root structure would certainly be compromised by trenching that new pipe through it and constructing the head wall.
Yeah, so there was no real, from an engineering standpoint, no real feasible and prudent alternative to removing the tree.
No, because we still need to convey that ditch generally where it goes now, and there's really not much room anywhere else in that area. We run out of room fairly quickly.
If I may also, Harry, you didn't mention that the alternative that we actually looked at was moving the head wall to actually save the tree. You'd have to move the head wall into the wetlands.
Right.
Which, so you would actually have to directly impact and fill the
Okay.
wetlands that were there. And we didn't think that that was a feasible.
Yeah, I just always hate to see such a
Yeah.
big tree removed if it doesn't have to be. But that's all that I have.
Jim?
This is one of the packages that we occasionally get that I found as a non-engineer, completely informative. The challenges and drainage that you're dealing with crushed pipes and roof drain issues and everything, you're just confirming what I was able to review thanks to Rick circulating this package. Looks like a first-rate effort to me.
Thank you.
Yeah, I agree with Jim on this. There's a lot going on in this site. Is possibly one of the unstated objectives here to create a relatively more dry basement? Is that in the back of the owner's mind here?
They actually don't have a basement. They have crawl space.
Okay, great.
Otherwise, I would have jumped in.
Yeah.
Their neighbors have basements.
It's
Well, he knows me, that's why there's no.
It's a nice plan. There's a lot in here for us to like
Yeah.
about it on a
Yes.
difficult piece of property, I understand.
Thank you.
I agree. It's a tough spot, and you guys are doing a good job with it, so it's very, very tough. That's it.
Anybody else have any questions or comments? Thank you very much, Harry. Kate, good to see you again.
Thank you.
Rick, you want to write up a draft proposal? Okay. Moving on, EPC 03-2024, 62 St. Nicholas Road. J Grills, T Grills to demolish an existing attached garage and construct a new pool house, drainage, and other related features proximate to the wetlands and watercourses. Property lies along the south side of St. Nicholas Road, is approximately 1,900 feet west of Mansfield Avenue, and is identified as map number 6, lot number 88. The zone is R2, and is approximately 2.02 acres. Rick?
Mr. Chairman, the application is on a property that not only supports a relatively new single-family dwelling, but also a detached accessory structure, essentially a shed or a garage or barn on the parcel. It is the applicant's intent to demolish the existing detached accessory structure and reconstruct in its place a pool house. If you've been to the site, you'll note that there's a single-family dwelling, an existing pool. There is public water, a subsurface sewage disposal system that are all part of the overall, the sanitary sewer here. The moderately to gently to moderately sloping developed uplands, there's wetlands and water courses. Most of it lies in the extreme reaches of the property in the southern portions of the site. There's many large trees on the property. The application will necessitate that the existing subsurface structures, drainage structures, portions of which have to be relocated in order to accommodate the new pool house. Tasks that the applicant must address that include seeking to minimize or avoid wetland resource impacts. Do they utilize measures to preserve water quality? had they addressed drainage impacts and provided measures to mitigate for impacts or improve the overall conservation values of the property in the regulated areas. A site plan has been developed. There are no direct wetland or watercourse encroachments proposed as part of this application. About 4,400 square feet of the upland review area will be affected. Most of that space is currently held as manicured lawn. If you've been up to the site, you'll note that there are some very steeply sloping areas to the south of the pool. They intend to step the pool house essentially into that sloping space with the first floor generally matching the pool, and the rear step down to match grade at the back side of the property. Grade changes in the low to moderate range, 1 to 4 feet. There'll be requirement for some low-profile retaining walls to assist and support a grade. The new pool house will be situated further from wetlands than the existing structure, expanding the setback with the primary structure from 38 to 58 feet. So there's an increase of about 20 feet of space. Other elements including the relocated drainage, an underground propane tank. There's necessity of moving part of the sanitary system with an ejector pump and force main, are generally no closer than 30 feet to the edge of the wetlands. There'll be no additional tree loss. Significant trees will be lost as a result of the proposal. Plans have been developed to address the concerns relating to drainage and water quality. Again, they have to move parts of the existing system to accommodate the structure, but also a new system was being proposed consisting of roof drains, pipes, junction boxes, and infiltrators to accommodate the new construction. As a result of doing that, the engineer has been able to certify that there'd be no adverse impact on drainage in the adjoining properties for storms ranging from 2 to 50 years. We'll note in here that the final comments are pending. However, we have received more advanced comments from the engineer, and there's a question relating to the new structures relative to the groundwater level that I believe that Mr. Rockwell is going to address this evening. Other things in terms of water quality is a basic erosion control plan that includes perimeter controls, riprap outlet protection for existing discharge points, junction boxes with deep sumps and outlet controls to assist in the collection of sands and silts, and of course infiltration is proposed to seize upon the soil's ability to treat and cool runoff. As currently proposed, no mitigation has been proposed, and the applicant will be prepared to address that this evening.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Rick. Harry Roachville with McCord Engineering, professional engineer in the state of Connecticut, representing Jeff and Tracy Grills. The property is 62 St. Nicholas Road, located here on the south side of St. Nicholas Road. Excuse me, I'm just going to flip back to the existing conditions so I can show you what's there. It's currently developed with single-family residence here, driveway providing access to a garage here, pool and hardscape to the rear of the residence. There's an existing, I guess you can call it a detached garage. That's what it is, down here at the bottom of the property below a retaining wall. As you can see, this pink line here is the wetlands line. This dashed pink line here is the 50-foot upland review area. So this structure is well within that 50-foot upland review area. All of the land between this and the wetlands that consists of this lawn has and has been maintained as such for, I believe, approximately the last 8 to 10 years. As you see before you now is the proposed site development plan. We're proposing to remove that detached garage within the upland review area and its associated retaining wall. We are proposing a new pool house outside of the upland review area and a small patio that will connect the pool house to the existing pool patio. As Rick had mentioned, it'll be split level. There'll be a first floor you walk into off the pool patio. There'll be a walkout at existing grade on the other side of the pool house. There is existing stormwater management measures on site now. It is shown right here. This primarily takes runoff from the driveway, the roof leaders from the house, and from the back of the house, and the pool area. There's some drains around the pool patio here that also conveys to that detention system. There's an existing outlet control structure here that will be maintained as part of this project, which outlets to a sort of an overflow outlet device, which is just a single Caltech unit with an overflow grate at grade, designed by the previous engineer that did this house. That will all stay as part of this project. We are not touching any of the existing drainage measures besides relocating the existing system of like size, so it is outside of the drainage path of our new structure and wall. So we don't want any of that stormwater that is infiltrating in that system to hit the back of our foundation, back of our wall, and cause us any issues. To handle runoff from our proposed development, we are proposing a detention system here, highlighted in blue, that will capture runoff from a majority of the pool house and the pool patio here. The pool patio we capture with a slot drain and conveyed to that detention system, and then roof leaders for the pool house. On the lower side where we can't route that runoff to the detention system, we will have splash pads at grade that handle the downspouts on that side. As Rick had mentioned, we did provide a drainage report that shows we are not increasing, in fact decreasing peak rates in volume of runoff for up to a 50-year storm as part of our proposed development. Our detention system also is sized to adequately handle the water quality volume we are creating for this project. And as Rick had mentioned, we have received essentially positive endorsement from Joe Canis. We received a little bit of clarity feedback last night. I responded to Rick this afternoon after I got a chance to review the comment.
Excuse me, was there anything controversial or show-stopping in this, or is just technical details?
Just technical details. I could briefly go over it if you want.
No. I trust your judgment. If you say it's eminently manageable between you and Joe Canis, I'm good. Okay, so
Okay.
I just would like your word that, Rick, you've seen it. Are you okay with it? With Joe Canis' comments?
They're talking about I think maybe you should at least say provide some commentary on it. They're saying that the test hole data seems to indicate that the infiltrators in their relocated position will be below the groundwater and will not be fully effective.
Yeah, I'll handle that. It's not the ones that are being relocated, it's the new ones that Joe's talking about. That is because we used soil testing from the previous design. Since there's been 2.5 feet of fill in this area, we are still designing our system to be above the seasonal groundwater, but there was a little discrepancy that I don't think Joe had seen the previous plan where, based on the soil testing that we show, it appears that our system is within this seasonal high groundwater, but it's actually, there's a 2.5 feet difference. So we're still a foot above from the bottom of our system to the seasonally high groundwater table. And I relayed that message to Joe and provide the previous site plan for when this house was built, showing, what the existing elevation at this spot was then, what it is now, the 2.5 foot difference, thus the 2.5 difference in groundwater elevation. So, yeah, in my professional opinion, we've satisfied that comment, and this detention system will operate as we're intending it to.
Okay, so it's above.
It is above.
As I understand your testimony, it's a foot above
Yes.
the groundwater.
Yep.
Okay.
Seasonal high groundwater.
The seasonal.
Yep. That's right. Continuing on, Rick mentioned there's some terrace retaining walls here to provide access to windows, doors around the pool house, and also soften the grade along the side of it. We're proposing a sewer ejector pump here. Per health code, that needs to be 25 feet from the structure. So we're showing it essentially as close as we can. It's within that footprint of building that needs to be removed, so no additional disturbance because of that location. It is just a spot that's down gradient from the structure, so we can get gravity from our structure there, pump the rest of the way. That'll tie into the existing lateral in the front of the house here. There is some existing outlet locations that we are adding riprap stabilization to improve the drainage that is already on site that discharges to the wetlands. One is located here, one's located here. We are adding our overflow mechanisms to this and improving that, improving the outlet structure for that pipe, and again, not increasing the runoff that gets to that point anyway, as specified in our drainage report. Erosion controls shown in green here. We propose a double row of silt fence in close proximity to the wetlands for extra protection there, with a couple of wing walls to capture the runoff as it comes down the steep slopes. I think Rick mentioned this as well. The existing garage is 28 feet from the wetlands. Our new structure will be 51 feet, so we are increasing that buffer by 23 feet. This all-hill area will be replaced with lawn, where all the structures will be removed. In my opinion, this project satisfies the stormwater quantity and quality standards for the town's drainage manual. It'll be an improvement for wetlands with the increased buffer, and will not adversely impact the wetlands or any downstream neighbors, downstream water courses. And I'd be happy to answer any questions. My clients are here if you have any questions for them as well as the architect, Arpita, is here as well.
Appreciate it, thank you.
Thank you.
Bill?
No questions.
No questions.
I also have no questions, Mr. Chairman.
I do have questions.
So we get a sweep.
Sorry. No, almost got it through.
Aaron, it's a great job presenting.
Yes, no, I don't really have any issues with the work that you're doing. My only question is when, I think it was in 2015, maybe 2017, that the pool was put in. Were there any mitigation plantings that were recommended at that time?
I am unsure. I wasn't
Because I
involved in
noticed
that project.
first there is a deer fence that does traverse the wetlands in the back. I was wondering when that approval was received, and I also noticed that the lawn, the manicured lawn, goes right up to it. So although you're removing the detached garage and increasing the lawn by 20 feet or so, that's also 20 more feet of pesticides and things that are going, fertilizers and pesticides that are running right into the wetlands. So I was just wanted to get clarification on the fence and whether or not there had been mitigation plantings that hadn't been installed.
I can't speak to the mitigation plantings from when the house was constructed. Every document I reviewed did not have any on there.
As best I
Engineering
can tell, there
documents.
was no EPC permit for the reconstruction of the dwelling or the construction of the pool. The
Okay.
intent was that all
Because it was
activities,
outside of the upland.
all
Okay.
activities would be held more than 50 feet away from wetlands. And that was, and they, again, there was no EPC permit, but there was a planning and zoning land filling and regrading application that was circa 2015. It appears that both the dwelling and the pool were completed by 2017. So there, even though there were no encroachments proposed, somewhere along the way after post 2017, deer fence was installed, or a fence that was maybe having a dual purpose for pool protection. There had been none proposed, but there's one there now. Again, I didn't find any evidence of an EPC permit for it. I do see it show up on an improvement location survey in 2017. And those drainage outlets, I hadn't seen, again, they appeared at some point during the construction, but I don't find any evidence of an EPC permit. So it's been there for some number of years.
The deer fence?
Yes.
So given that it does traverse the wetlands, I mean, would the owner be against putting in a buffer?
I could certainly discuss with them, and as Rick mentioned, we had seen the same as-built survey that he mentioned that shows the fence crossing the wetlands and signed off by Planning and Zoning Department. So as far as we were concerned, that was...
Was that in was that uploaded? That was for the pool, that
I don't think I included
was.
any old records, but it was a public record in the Planning and Zoning Commission applications. I don't have the... We have a couple copies here.
It's okay. You guys want to see?
In the past,
Yeah, what's
we made them go back and get them.
And I believe that as-built was signed off by David Keaton at the time.
Right, I mean, there was a document here dated June of 2015 where it said there were flagged wetlands on the rear portion of the site and there will be no activity in that area or within 50 feet of that area, thus no EPC review or application was required. So, I mean, a fence is activity, and it was flagged, so.
Yeah, again, I can't speak to the previous application. All we can speak to is that it was signed off by Planning and Zoning Commission.
Just to be clear, the fence is not transversing a water course.
Yes, not a water course now.
No, there's lawn right up to it at this point.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
I mean, that's my, my concern is just that, I mean, it was signed off on because none of the activity that was being conducted at the time was within 50 feet of the wetland. But a fence was put in at some point, and if it had been, there would have been a recommendation that some sort of mitigation planting would be installed to sort of provide a buffer between the manicured lawn and the very active wetland. So I would just think that would be a good thing, a prudent thing to do, given that even though it wasn't, we don't have on record that the fence was put. I just think we need to get a little more detail on that.
On what was approved, or?
On the fence, when it was installed and who approved, whether it came before this commission.
Well, the best I can tell, it didn't.
It didn't.
I think in the past, we've asked to go back and get permits for things like fences even. So for consistency's sake, maybe we can ask this again. Is that something?
Yeah, the fence is in, okay? And,
get the permit,
and from a practical standpoint, I was gonna say, the fence is in, and, in the worst of all cases, you sit there and say, okay, take the fence out. No, because he's gonna have to put people in there, machinery, everything
More
he knows
disturbance.
about, and that's gonna disturb what's ever back there even more. So the question comes out then is to say, okay, is there something they can mitigate?
Right.
Okay,
That's what I'm asking.
to put some plants in their area, put something in there to buffer, because, EPC did not see this, okay, because it was specifically out of the 50-foot, out of the 50-foot range. Clearly something happened there that a 50, and maybe Dave Keating missed it, maybe the planning and zoning missed it, that said they should have requested. I don't know, and but the fact is that it's there. So I think, I think a possible solution to our concerns is to get some plantings in there, just to mitigate something like that. Is that, would you consider that as you represent the applicant?
I believe my applicants would. I can confirm with them.
Okay?
Would that be something we could prepare for staff review, or would that be
Yeah, I
a
think
plan that
that's
needs to
good.
go?
Yes, Rick, would you be up for that to?
Yes, but I just want to be very
That
clear.
you deal with Rick?
I just want to be very clear where it's going to occur. If it's in a wetland on the land, what's called the landward side of the deer fence, in other select areas, then, I mean, that's fine. I certainly can do that.
So here, you deal with Rick for staff approval on that. I don't want to get this.
I'll let my clients speak if you want to.
Would you like to speak? Please.
Take the
Identify
coordination out
yourself,
of
sir,
it.
for the record. Please stand up to the microphone.
Sure. Thank you very much. My name is Jeff Grills. I'm the owner with my wife at 62 St. Nicholas. So the answer to your question is that we were open to doing what is necessary to facilitate this project. The part that I'm struggling with is that we did build the house in 2015, moved in 2016 where we got a temporary CO, and then worked on the pool, which was started in the fall of 2016 and completed in 17. And during that process, we've used Sarah McCool of Ungamack McCool, who's been working in town for years. And again, I trusted her and everything else that was going on, but she had worked with Rich Jacobson to go through what was necessary. And so you ask about planting. So on the east side of our property, we have a full
Yeah, I saw them.
native plantings that were put in at the request of Rich. He had asked us to put that in. Sarah did accommodate that. The deer fence was always spec'd out. So if you go back to the original permit that we submitted, and we actually didn't see it until tonight, but on page 22, it's indicated that the deer fence is on that permit that we applied for the pool. So we put the fence in because at the time, obviously, you had to have a fence surrounding a pool. That was the requirement of the law. And we also wanted to have a deer fence in to at least minimize the disturbances of deer. But on page 22 of that permit application, we did note that deer fence, and that was in conjunction of Sarah working with Rich Jacobson to make sure that was done. So I don't know why he didn't request something to be written. I don't know why he didn't write it down. I don't know why there wasn't a further process. But I feel like we followed all of the requests. There was existing lawn there. We did not clear anything. The prior owners had lawn up to that, so all we did was install the fence in consultation with Rich Jacobson. So again, I'm willing to do what's necessary. I'm a little confused on why we followed all the procedures, at least that I was aware of at the time, and now we're being asked to change something where we're not doing any work in that area. So, I mean, we've got a contingent plan of plants if it was really necessary, but I'm not, again, sure why we're being asked to change what was approved several years ago.
Right, except the fence wasn't specifically approved. I don't know if it was overlooked in the application, but.
I think we're all dealing with,
Yeah.
we don't know, okay? I'd be interested, my personal files, I wouldn't have this, but if I had a fence installed, maybe you have the bill for the expense, so we could say fence installed by this certain date. I don't know. I'm sure Sarah McCool, if she said she contacted Rich Jacobson, hey, I believe her, but if she had something written down, it would have been a lot more forceful. It would have been a lot more forceful. So and maybe P&Z blew it. Okay, I don't know. Okay, I just don't know. A deer fence I can certainly appreciate, and I can certainly because the deer population is out of control in this town as far as I'm concerned. But that said, we find ourselves where we are. Okay, so I look at this and I go, is there something, is there something, considering the size of this project, et cetera? I think certain members of the commission would say, would you consider throwing in, a few plants that Harry can deal with Rick about? Or if not, then, and you take a much more tougher stance, which is your total right, then you sit there and say, okay, then, we'll have to, I just would like to have your opinion on that.
To me, I'm just trying to keep within a cost-conscious budget for this whole project because, my children are going to be moving out. This is something that we've held off on for a long time. So I'm doing it to improve the value of my house, maybe get a little bit of usage out of it. So, look, I've followed the rules as along all these projects. And so I agree with you that if Sarah had something in writing, it would be useful. I don't know, again, I don't know the process that was done at that time. I don't know why it wouldn't have been requested. And again, the application had the deer fence demarcated going through the wetlands, so Rich, I assume, saw it. I assume whoever was on the planning and zoning that saw that, maybe they missed it, to your point. So I appreciate, I'm just trying to figure out why I'm being asked to do it differently in a later date for what we felt like we followed the rules.
Okay, I understand that. I think this commission feels that concerning what's literally happening outside right now, the 2 inches of rain, we are very concerned about taking the responsibilities of the inland wetlands and watersheds, water courses here, that there's, with the grass flowing down, there's fertilizers there. Any study that is done of Darien's water courses comes up with an excess of nitrogen, excess of phosphate, and all of the things that homeowners typically put on their grasses. And that affects the wetlands and water courses very significantly over a long period of time. So what we're looking for, okay, is to see what we can do to minimize the amount of grass and, let's say, fertilized property that in the upland review area, so that when the wetland comes down, when the water comes down, it doesn't, the landowners' nutrients that are added to the soil, or artificially added to the soil, don't flow into the inland wetlands and watercourses of Darien. That's I think an overwhelming, that's a strong concern of ours. And I think you can look at our history of even tonight, when we talked about previous applications, that we like to have barriers to water courses. We like to make them as natural as they possibly can. We like to keep the fertilizers out. We like to have barriers to that demarcate certain pieces of property to prevent development encroachment onto the upland review areas and wetlands and inland water courses. I don't know, how do commission members feel about it? Peter?
I can see the weighing of both sides here. I think it's a matter of degree. You talked about cost, etc. I'm not too exercised over the fence. On the other hand, if there were a way to see some shrubs or some oak trees, for example, planted on the far end of the fence away from the home into the wetlands. Now, I'm not talking about huge oaks, I'm talking about, something 3 or 4. It's a matter of just, digging in a few places and planting a couple of things to make a compromise, I think.
Bill?
Yeah, I see both sides of it too. I like to think that people can do the right thing, improve your property, make it for an environmental perspective. Yeah, it will cost some money, probably a small amount compared to the rest of the project, but that's none of my business. But if you can improve it to, help the environment a little bit, That's a positive. But you had it handed to you that way, so I get that as well.
Right. And
So I'm going to stay in the middle on this one. I don't know the answer.
I mean, we developed a plan, just trying to be contingent and thoughtful about this, so I'm happy to, I mean, I know it's late, but to share that, and there's 4 copies there. I apologize, there's not a copy for everyone, but, I mean, the answer is I'll do what I need to do and do what's right. And I get it, right? Water runoff and, you know, I'm even considering putting in like some, you know, figuring out what do we need to do, and that was the work we did with
Yeah,
Harry.
no,
We addressed that.
I
So
appreciate it, because we're all in, you know, if we had some, you know, something solid, you know, I'm reminded of the Latin expression, verbum volante scriptum permanente. You know, what is said, sorry for those who didn't take high school Latin. Okay, which is to say, hey, what's written
It's right there.
flows around, you know, your interpretation, my interpretation. What is written remains. What's written is something that you and I can analyze.
Yeah.
And you know, I'm agreeing with this. Is there something here?
No, so whether or not when the fence was put in, you know, later in the wetlands, whether or not it was done consciously or not consciously, or I'm sure there was no ill will, but I'm a little concerned about setting a precedent for other people, and they could just say like, oh, I didn't know, or like, oh, there was an oversight, or whatever, and I just think.
No, but if it was in the plan.
So you're looking at the permit, you're looking at the permit application?
If it was in the 216 plan, okay, and planning and zoning and Dave Keating and everybody else missed it, you know, that's on us.
Yeah.
That's on the town, and,
That
you know,
does
that's.
seem to be what happened, because if you look at the Planning and Zoning Commission resolution dated June 2015, they state clearly there are flagged wetlands on the rear portion of the site, and there will be no activity in that
But the
area.
fence
or
wasn't
within
part
50
of this, was it?
Because they're saying right there that if you do anything that is in the wetlands,
Doesn't have to review it.
EPC does have to review it if it is in the wetlands.
But this didn't include the fence. The fence came later, right?
Sorry,
In
is
the
that the
wetlands.
application permit?
That's,
Can
yeah.
you go to page 22?
Well, this is page 2 of
Right,
the
I
Planning and
understand
Zoning
that.
resolution.
She's asking you to go to page 22.
Page 22.
I don't think it goes to 22.
Of the permit?
What
I think that they sent us collated, so that might be it.
Oh, actually, because I called the town and asked them to send me the permit that was submitted, so it's a 79-page document. I think I had sent it,
Do you have it
to
Fence
you.
in the wetlands
You
wasn't
have
And
in
on page
that.
22,
Wasn't in that.
Yeah,
Whatever
no, I
that-
don't think it was.
Right.
on page 22, and I don't have it in front of me, I
Unless
apologize.
it was and they missed it.
There is the outline of the fence that goes through the wetlands on page 22 of that
If it is, it is.
document.
The deer fence is there, so
Oh.
Planning and Zoning missed
So
it.
planning and zoning.
Yeah, Arpita Muchal
right
here,
here.
sorry.
I'm sorry, could you just speak up for
So it
that?
says deer fence.
Arpita Muchal here. I just want to
Arpita, go
add
ahead.
2 points here, not to create more confusion. But yes, the deer fence is shown like you saw, Carolyn. And the second thing that I want to say is that you will see that in the zoning commission application also, there were no planting plans or no conversations about adding plants. However, per my client, there was a conversation between Sarah McCool and Rick Jacobson at that point, where this fence was then approved and planting was also put in place by my client. I wasn't part of that application, so I can't say what happened, but even the fact that there were plans put on site that you've gone and seen were not part of any written application, but were still provided. And as we know, there was a lot of conversations that would happen and staff approval also being done. So my suspicion is that something just,
They missed the fence on the application because they didn't require any plantings because they didn't see the fence. Had they seen the fence, they would have referred it to E EPC.
But this is not accurate. There was nothing on the design plans. That's the as-built,
Okay.
following construction.
Oh, okay.
That's what I was
Okay.
referring to.
Oh.
So
Hey, listen, guys, we're going down a rabbit hole here.
Okay.
We are around.
You know, we're going down a rabbit hole here. Do I like the deer
Finish.
fence? No. Would, if this was a redo, I would push it back and I would require plantings, et cetera, et cetera.
But you have a
That
planting
said,
plan.
it's done, okay, and that's done, and any remediation at this point in time, pull the fence, move the fence, et cetera, I just don't see as feasible, okay, as feasible, and it would create a whole lot more damage and everything else.
I know.
So, you know, I'm there and I look at, sorry, Rick.
No, he's presented a planting plan now for the wetlands.
Oh,
Hey, no, let him talk.
But I said it as a backup, I mean, I am willing to do what's right.
okay, there we go.
Where, I didn't,
There we go, I'm done.
Yeah, the only thing I was gonna say is just,
Okay.
I mean,
Sure.
good point, I did
Jeff.
plantings on the other part, so I'm just kinda like, why am I having to do even more plantings?
I appreciate that, but
I
if that's okay with you?
I mean, it sounds like I
I
don't have
think we
a
need
choice.
more than that.
That's what I'm telling you. So I'm gonna take,
All right.
I mean,
Okay.
I did what I was supposed to do, I felt like,
Yeah,
that's
no,
what I
yeah.
have to do to get this approved, then,
Yeah.
yes.
Can the plantings be extended to the other wetlands area? No, I'm serious, but because they're just in the one wetlands area, like, why can't there be plantings in the other wetlands area?
Well, all the
Well, it's
wetlands
a-
areas are past the fence
Yeah, that's beyond the fence.
Yeah.
in our natural
That's on the
woodlands, so
inside
we
of the
just wanted
fence.
to mitigate the area that is maintained as lawn now and
Yeah.
maintain the natural feature of the other wetlands.
So this area beyond the fence is just it's just natural?
Yeah, it was
It's
lawn that was
lawn.
always there.
It's lawn?
It's
Yeah.
lawn that was there.
It's
No,
big.
the other side is not.
The fence is a pretty clear
If everyone can just
delineation.
go to the podium to speak so I can get everything recorded.
You know, I think one of the things we also have to remember on this application, correct me if I'm wrong, Harry, is that we're removing a garage out of the upland review area, which
Right.
is a significant benefit to the wetlands.
Yeah.
So in a sense, that's the remediation.
Exactly. That was
Would you
our,
agree with that?
that was our strategy, right?
Yes.
By almost doubling the setback from the structure.
And to me, that's, you
It's
know,
very significant.
might as well pull out some plants that you planted before.
That's what we were
You're off
going
the
for.
court.
Yeah.
Levity is important here. Thank you.
All right.
Sorry.
Lauren?
I don't agree with what Peter said, first of all.
No?
Second of all, so it's just shrubs and some ground cover, right? Were any larger trees considered?
So we worked with Sarah originally on a couple different options, because I know there was originally a request to remove the fence, so I wanted to, she's on vacation right now, so I'm
Well, that's too bad. Yeah.
I'm sort of working in absence
Okay.
with her. So the answer is, I went off of her recommendation of what she felt was the right situation. We didn't have trees that we put in the other wetland area, so to keep it consistent, we wanted to have similar plantings to what we had in the other area that we did install in 2017, or 16 or 17.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Anybody else would like to question or comment? Comments? Okay. Rick? You want to write this up?
I can certainly do that. We
Okay.
include this. There'll be a resolution of the issues with Joe Canis, but we can do that in advance.
Yeah,
of the
that's,
next
that,
meeting.
you know, I think Harry has a good handle on that, so, whether it's above or below the.
Yeah, if Joe needs anything formal from
Harry,
us.
I don't
we
think
have-
you'd ever present something here that was below the water line, because that's not you. Okay.
Appreciate it.
Anybody else? Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, moving on, EPC 04-2024, 5 Meadow Road, H. Boyle and H. Boyle, to construct patios, drainage, and related features approximate to wetlands and watercourses. Property lies along the east side of Meadow Road, approximately 500 feet north of Old Farm Road, and is identified as map number 65, lot 26. The zone is R1 and is approximately 679 acres.
Mr. Chairman, the application is to construct patios, drainage, and related features proximate to the site's wetlands and watercourses. If you went through the agenda summary report, you'll note that this project had been essentially split. The major renovation of the house had come in several months back, and a site plan was done, a drainage plan was done, and through that process, they were able to demonstrate that all the activity had been maintained outside of their regulated areas. They had an erosion control plan, et cetera. This is a continuation of that project in which some of the expanded patio space, et cetera, falls within the regulated areas. We had accepted the application a month or two back. They had been, there was a request for some additional information to address areas of concern. And the plans that you have before you tonight are reflective of those changes. Currently, there's a single-family dwelling on the property that's undergoing a major renovation. Wetlands are in the back of the property, and the back of the property is also situated within the 500-year floodplain. It's proximate to the school. The dwelling
It's a big
has
swamp, right?
It's a big
right on-
swamp that's
right on
that's right
Tokenie
there.
Road there, yeah.
Yep, and the applicant, in response, to address our concerns about resource impacts, regulated area impacts, water quality, drainage impact, and the meaningful submission of a meaningful mitigation plan. They provided a site development plan. I just want to get on the record that the encroachments, there are no encroachments in the wetlands and water courses. The encroachments affect temporarily or permanently about 648 square feet of the upland review area. The area is affected by the expanded terrace and patio, albeit they lie within the regulated areas, essentially lawn grass, and other developed space. Very little, less than a foot of grade change is anticipated, no additional tree loss as a result of the project. The primary elements such as the patio lie no less than 48 feet to the wetlands. The lesser structures such as the proposed drainage mitigation structures lie within approximately 27 feet of the wetland. There was a statement and a report that had been prepared concerning drainage impact. Again, they're taking some of the stormwater associated with this new space and putting it into infiltrators. As a result of that, if constructed in accordance with the plan, there'd be no increase in drainage or impacts to adjoining properties, and for all the storms ranging for 2 to 50 years. There was an operations plan that had been submitted. Other things to support water quality included the temporary erosion control plan, stabilization of the site, and again, we're utilizing infiltration to seize upon the soil's natural ability to cool and treat runoff. Per the request of the commission, a mitigation plan has been proposed. Includes for some cleanup, some removal and relocation of construction debris, but also a firm depiction of a manicured lawn and landscape has been defined, and environmental plantings have been proposed for a portion of the space adjoining the wetlands. We're displacing lawn, filtering runoff, etc. Also, they've provided a demarcation feature. I'm losing my voice, I've been here since 6 o'clock this morning. And that's about it.
One more to go.
Good evening. For the record, Rachel Orsi from SE Minor, here representing the applicant. I think Mr. Talamelli summarized that quite aptly, and I'm here simply to answer any additional questions that the commission may have, but hopefully we have addressed all concerns. I know we have also addressed the concerns that were raised by Mr. Canis as well, in terms of the engineering.
So Joe's okay with it?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Lauren, you want to start, or you want to start with Bill?
If Joe's okay, I'm okay.
Okay, good.
I'm good.
Good.
I just want to, I had mentioned at the time we discussed this application, the phragmites that are on site, whether those are going to be removed by hand.
I
didn't see it in the write-up, so.
I can verify, but I would imagine that if there's the removal occurring, that it would be, we would recommend by hand and oversee that process.
It's
Right.
currently not being proposed.
Right, but I brought it up at the last meeting.
Well, we brought it up for them too, and what they chose to do was the debris removal, the construction debris removal, and the environmental enhancements.
Right.
I think the choice, the discussions I had with them is the Phragmites removal was not a part of this. It's just such at a grand scale and goes off the property into the school property and beyond, that it seemed to have been given the scope and scale of the project, that it was kind of beyond what
They could start, but they would never be successful because it's off-site. Because it's off-site. They're not allowed to go on school property to deal with that. So it's just going to re-encroach.
Right, I mean, I didn't know, for one thing, that they were off-site, that they were going off-site, but,
Yeah.
no.
I just think it would be futile, I guess is the word, because as soon as you start pulling it, plants are going to grow where they can. So they would just grow right back, but,
I mean, do we know that for sure, that they?
Well, she's
they
the expert. Let's
exceed
ask her.
The property?
Oh, they definitely exceed the property boundary. There's some that are on this site.
Right, but
clearly.
you're saying they exceed it.
Just that they chose, given the scope and scale of this project, 'cause it's an expansion of the patio, is that they chose to do 3 of the 4 things that were recommended.
That's all I had.
I have no questions.
No questions.
No questions.
okay. So,
Thank you.
thank you.
So draft a resolution.
Please draft a resolution. Okay. Moving on. EPC 06-2024-106, Stephen Mather Road and Checkets to construct a residential addition and related improvements proximate to wetlands and watercourses. Property lies along the south side of Stephen Mather Road, just east of Maplewood Drive, and is identified as map 01, lot number 29. The zone is R2, and it's approximately 2.341 acres. Rick, can you talk?
I think I saw a flicker of light, so we probably should cancel the meeting. Right now.
And then there were none.
Never done. That's so mean. That is not even funny.
Mr. Chairman, this application came before the commission about a month ago, and it's currently proposed to construct a residential addition and related improvements. It's essentially a pool house attached to the existing dwelling to serve the ongoing pool construction. The prior pool, or the pool, was the subject of a prior EPC permit, and in that permit, they were allowed to fill wetlands, with the trade-off being a pretty extensive planting plan for the rear yard space closest to the wetlands and to the water course that's at the rear portion of the property. Property currently supports single-family dwelling, as I said, driveway, walkways, patio space, subsurface sewage disposal system, public water. It includes gently to moderately sloping uplands and wetlands, not only that are lawn, well, extensively lawn, but there's also wooded wetlands on the property as well. There's no special flood hazard areas. The tasks that we outlined for the applicant was to, again, minimize the impact on regulated areas and areas of resource, water quality, address potential drainage impacts, and we'll take another good hard look at the mitigation proposals that had been previously proposed, and with our current wealth of knowledge, is to see if it can be improved. The wetland in the rear of the property, again, is extensively lawn, and it goes back to an area of wooded wetland. In the front, there's a pretty expansive pocket wetland that was left untouched as a result of no enhancement being proposed under the last application. The applicant has presented a site plan Encroachments that affect about 235 square feet of upland review area. That area was previously destined to be patio space, so there's really no increase of impervious surface. There'd be relatively no grade change, no additional tree loss as a result. They had that engineer provide a drainage statement, and again, citing the lack of increase of impervious surface, no adverse impact on drainage in the adjoining properties. They'll be discharging the roof drains to the ground or dropping it into parts of a system that drain to a rain garden that had been previously proposed. We asked the applicant to have his engineer review the rain garden design because it seemed like it wasn't in its condition of the last approval, wasn't easily buildable from what had been provided on the plans. They provided greater details and something that would work more effectively on the site with a new detail now and with a very detailed landscaping plan for it. And they included the actual soil characteristics that you have to apply to it as well. There's an erosion control plan that is been proposed, and as far as the enhancement plan, they went back to the planting plan provided for the rear of the property and have made sure that they've included true natives. They've also installed in the front portion of the property in the pocket wetland. They came up with a landscaping plan for that space as well. So they're eliminating the long grass in the space, and they're coming up with native plantings in there. And there is, again, a pretty extensive plan for this refurbished rain garden. We talked about a demarcation feature, and along the planted space in the rear, they're going to do a split rail fence. Hard line of limit of lawn landscaping, but they're actually going to install a split rail fence as well. So it is a marked improvement over in terms of the constructability of what is being done. They're also removing a ton of debris that is in the space. And Mr. Proved's here to answer any questions. And I'm available to answer questions as well. Oh, there was one question that Mr. Wright had brought up about, is there a conservation easement on the property?
I see it again, right there.
See it again, but there is not. And the reason being, and we had, the office went and looked, there had been 3 or 4 other proposals historically for this property, for a pool and other enhancements, for additions. There was,
They put an elevator in this, I recall.
and at one point, there had been a proposal, although never pursued or approved or pursued, of a conservation easement, as best that we can tell based on a review of a vast amount of documentation. So there is no easement. There is the planting.
So there was discussion of a conservation easement, but previous approvals were not contingent upon it. A conservation easement was not offered.
So there it is, right there.
Yeah, so they showed it on a plan.
Yeah.
But they never pursued those applications. So they came back in, was it 2021, with a proposal that was for the pool and wetlands, the planting, the rain garden, no planting up front.
Okay.
And they have.
Is it on the tax records? Are they getting a break on their tax records? Did you look there?
I don't know why they would get a break on their tax records unless they.
No, if they had a conservation easement, they would get a break on their tax records.
Well,
That's easily looked up. I mean,
Thank you.
I can get that one. No,
Not usable space.
So if there's not, then
Then
we can check it later.
You just take that off the plan, obviously, if that's sitting
Yeah.
there.
So.
Okay,
No,
that's all I had, if you're asking me.
No questions.
Jim?
Nothing, Dave.
Carolyn?
Can I say something? I like that, am I looking for the application? I'm so tired. I like that the cultivars were replaced with true natives. That was, I really like that. I just wanted to say that the removal of the woody debris and brush, I I think it also said that there would be, I don't know if it specified that invasives would be removed, but they should be, and if they are, they should be removed by hand. I don't think it was specified that invasives were being removed, but shouldn't, I mean, there were quite a few invasives.
Yeah.
And it should be done by hand. And then perhaps should include a follow-up landscape evaluations, just as was specified in the last application with this commission in 2021, to make sure that they survive. And then just one quick question, the pool house, it's just it's a crawl space, it's not on a slab, right?
Correct. Alan Broadbent Design Studio. Yes, it's a crawl space.
It's a crawl
Yeah.
space, okay.
The house at that portion is only a crawl space also.
It is,
So they're
okay.
matching that.
Okay. Yep, I think that's all that I have. Thank you.
Nothing for me.
Thank you.
Okay, so there's nothing on the land, thank you, you beat me to it. Okay, yeah, there's nothing here on the tax assessment records.
You guys are quick, whoa.
Hey.
Computer savvy, yeah?
Hey,
All right.
you obviously didn't appeal your taxes. You obviously didn't appeal your assessment, that's why you would know that, right?
Good point. You guys had a
Okay.
bookmark, huh?
All right, I don't have anything. Rick, you want to write that up for next time? This is yours. Thank you very much.
Great.
We're done?
Okay.
Are you the homeowner?
I'm not
Oh, okay.
the applicant.
Yeah. So there's no approval of minutes, no agent approvals, no other business, motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn our Environmental Protection Commission regular meeting and public hearings of today's date, April 3, 2024.
Second that motion.
All in favor? Thank you. Good night, get home safe.